নলেজ পাৰ্কত অৱস্থিত গালগটিয়াছ অভিযান্ত্ৰিক আৰু প্ৰযুক্তিবিদ্যা মহাবিদ্যালয়ৰ মানৱবিজ্ঞান বিভাগৰ মুৰব্বী। তেওঁ শিলচৰৰ অসম বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ পৰা ভাষা বিজ্ঞানত MA আৰু MPhil কৰিছিল আৰু তেওঁ দিল্লী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ পৰা ভাষা বিজ্ঞানত PhD আৰু পষ্টডক লাভ কৰিছিল। তেওঁৰ শিক্ষাদানৰ ক্ষেত্ৰবোৰৰ ভিতৰত আছে প্ৰফেশ্যনেল কমিউনিকেশ্যন, টেকনিক্যাল ৰাইটিং, প্ৰফেশ্যনেল কমিউনিকেশ্যন লেব, সফট স্কিলছ, ভাষাৰ প্ৰকৃতি, ভাষা আহৰণ, ধ্বনি বিজ্ঞান আৰু ধ্বনিতত্ত্ব, সমাজ ভাষা বিজ্ঞান, ভাষাৰ দিশ, ভাৰতীয় ইংৰাজী সাহিত্য আৰু সংস্কৃতি আৰু বৈচিত্ৰ্য। তেওঁৰ গৱেষণাৰ ক্ষেত্ৰসমূহৰ ভিতৰত আছে সমাজ ভাষা বিজ্ঞান, ধ্বনি বিজ্ঞান আৰু ধ্বনিতত্ত্ব, ভাষা আহৰণ, উত্তৰ পূব ভাৰতৰ ভাষা, বৈজ্ঞানিক লিখনি, ভাষা গৱেষণাগাৰ, সাহিত্যত ভাৰতীয় ইংৰাজী ইত্যাদি। তেওঁ বহুতো সন্মিলন আৰু আলোচনা চক্ৰত তেওঁৰ গৱেষণা পত্ৰ উপস্থাপন কৰি আহিছে। তেওঁ ইগনো আৰু দিল্লী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ স্কুল অফ অপেন লাৰ্ণিঙৰ একাডেমিক কাউন্সিলৰ হিচাপেও কাম কৰে। তেওঁ ফেকাল্টি ডেভেলপমেণ্ট চেল, কমিউনিটি ডেভেলপমেণ্ট চেল, প্ৰক্টৰিয়েল বোৰ্ড আদিৰ দৰে বহুতো সাংগঠনিক কাৰ্যকলাপৰ সৈতেও জড়িত হৈ আছে। এগৰাকী শিক্ষয়িত্ৰী হিচাপে তেওঁৰ 2003 চনৰ পৰাই বহুত দীঘলীয়া অভিজ্ঞতা আছে। Dr. Kokali Madam, on behalf of the organizers, I give you a very warm welcome and humbly request you to deliver your lecture. Now the mic and screen are yours. But one thing we would like to request you, एक छोटा सा request है, ताकि आप अपनी lecture 3:45 तक खत्म करें.
Okay, I'll try.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I thank, first of all, I thank the National Testing Service India and Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, to give me this opportunity to share my experience with the brothers and sisters, my fellow colleagues from Assam. And indeed, it's really a great opportunity for me to talk to you and share my experiences to you. So without wasting much time, let me just share my screen first of all. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So,
Madam, could you make it full screen?
I have done the full screen. No, it's not coming.
Madam, it's not full screen. Press F5, madam.
Just a second. What should I press? F1?
F5, madam.
F5, okay. Is it now? Is it now visible?
Okay, ma'am, we can continue.
Okay, please tell me if there is any problem, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, আপোনালোক সকলোৱে মই অভিনন্দন জনাইছো. The topic of my discussion today is essential values of a teacher, traditional versus modern approach. Can I change the slides? Yeah.
It has changed to second slide.
Yes, thank you. So these are the highlights of my lecture. More jot moi paru moi Ohomiyat moi explain korum. Ohomiya language more second language hoy or more pasot moi hikisu when I came to Assam. Tetia moi Ohomiya bhatu hikisu. আৰু ইমান ভালকে ক'ব নাপাৰিলেও মই চেষ্টা কৰিম ক'বলৈ। So I'll start my lecture on understanding that how this traditional language learning approaches and what is the differences today in the 21st century. So if you look at communication, which is the basic human activity which enables some form of direct or indirect communication with others, affecting both the personal and professional life. Communication is such that today in this 21st century, when we talk of communication, it has taken a big leap, and we don't know that how far this communication, when we communicate to a person, we have so many so many tools, to communicate. So it can be a direct mode of communication, or it can be also an indirect mode of communication. So it not only affects our personal, but also it affects our professional life as well. So people employ different communicational skills to talk to each other, in order to achieve the conversational purpose. We have a goal, which we want to achieve, and there, language plays a very important role. So it also shares information or something to be made known to as the situation demands. So these are one of the fundamental things, communication, the objectives of a communication is. Other than that, we must also understand what kind of communication, is involved in the human activity. So human communication is both social and cognitive, because it is a process by which individuals transmit or exchange information and influence one another through a common set of symbols. So you can see in every language, we have a common, there's a set of symbols and signs which are, mutually intelligible and understandable to each other. So communication arises only when there is a need or any human activity. So if there is no need, we do not talk. So this is very simple. Though studies have said that language is a tool to express one's own feelings and expressions, on the one hand, my thoughts or ideas are representation of my surroundings. Moi jote thaku, more environment, more surroundings, it has an immense influence on how I speak, my habits, okay, and the way I do certain things are culture dependent. মই অসমত থাকিলে মোৰ অসমৰ যি বিভিন্ন কালচাৰ আছে সেইটো মোৰ ভাষাত ওলাই আহিব। মই এতিয়া দিল্লীত আছো, তো দিল্লীৰ কালচাৰ এইটোত মই এডাপ্ট কৰিব লাগিব, মোৰ কেতিয়াবা ইচ্ছা নাথাকিলেও মই এইটো কৰিব লাগিব। Yet we find that translation, এতিয়া মই translationত যদি যাওঁ, তো it acts as a very barrier in describing certain culture, specific way of life. So this is one of the thing where translation doesn't work. So good and effective communication is the fundamental of the 21st century, which calls for creativity and credibility. So this creativity, on the one hand, we are getting so many platforms to communicate and express our thoughts and ideas. But you see that the more we have the platforms, the less is the credibility. So you can see the news channels. We have so many news channels, but then you have only few news channels jitu mane bhal or sothik khobor diye. So this is what we have to achieve. The objective of our communication is not only being creative, but also it should add credibility to what we are communicating to others. So this can be achieved by clear and striking tone, which indicates that the information you are discussing contains the right information. So this is very important. Even if we have so many things to talk, and today you look in my coming slides, you'll see that we have so many platforms to talk, and today you can see through the mobile technology, you can have so many apps, where you communicate, and there are so many YouTube channel, for example. You can see so many short videos or long videos. People have so many videos coming up, and they're so much creative in their expressing their ideas and thoughts. So in this information age, the source is not collecting the materials. Okay, so this is one thing we all teachers, facilitator, we must understand that it is not it is not just collecting materials, but it is the information and knowledge applied to work, okay, which creates value. So this is very, very important. As being a facilitator, we should always keep this in mind. So how to understand a language? So language is used to facilitate communication, as I said. So aru eta bostu yat ami janibo lagibo that no two languages are alike. Now there is a big debate between what is a language and what is a dialect. Amar Ohomoto standard Ohomia kobo parile to you go to the Upper Assam, you find that this is the standard variety of Assamese. But if you come to other parts of Assam, you say that these are the dialects of Assamese. So whatever it is, we have to understand that no two languages are alike. Even though the use of a language is not homogenized, but who speaks what and how in different domain is what matters. So what is distinctive in one language may not be distinctive in another language, or may be used in a different way. Learning a language is not just learning the grammar and vocabulary. It also empowers one to express one's own thought and ideas or action in the most significant way with clarity, precision, and accuracy. So today, when we are in this 21st century, we must aim for this clarity, we must aim for precisions, and there must be accuracy in what we speak. So it is very difficult and near impossible, to adapt and get along with people if there is no way to communicate with one another. So this is a fact. If you don't have a communication, if you don't have a language, then it is very difficult to communicate with one another. So in a whole, speech community is very subtly structured and multi-layered, and thus it cannot be studied in isolation. So no language, when I said that no two languages are alike, so you must understand that there are two cultures there. So no language can be studied in isolation. Sometimes what we do is that we go from one place to another and we learn a language there. Suppose there are so many foreign language course in schools these days, like French, German, Korean, and all those things. But we are not in that culture, but then we are learning it in a different mode, where we don't get to interact with those people who are the native speakers of Japanese or German or French. Okay, so we must understand this, how does this language function. So you see, you can see here the speech community and use of language. So as I said that the speech community, you can see, I have just put some of the things here, how we can structure the speech community, but there are so many things within itself also. Okay, so here I would like to just show you, what speech community actually is. So the uniqueness of this is, you can see the variations within the community. So all these pointers, all these indicators which constitutes the speech community. So you can see here, and I give you a broad classification and quickly tell you what it means. So if I look at history, so you see the demography and geography, the outreach, the history of the residential settlement. This also contribute a lot to the language, a speech community is using. So, we cannot understand the language. I mean, a language research just taking the current situation. We cannot. So if we have to understand today's language, how Assamese is today, then we have to go back to the history and look at the history of Assamese language. And for this, we have to look at the geography, we have to look at the demography, you have to also look at, how people have, traveled here, or, who are the early settlers here. So this gives a good information on the language of today. So the people and ethnicity, who are, this also are good indicators to know the use of language. That means who are the communities, okay, their linguistic ethnicities, language spoken in use, and how they look like, these people, how they look like, then their food habits, lifestyle, cultural practices, taboos and totems. They are amicable in nature, whether they are amicable in nature or not. All these things, these people and ethnicity, they give us the clue, of the use of language. So generation and age. So this again, these two are again a very good indicator to show the, variation and change. So the adaptability and adoptions are a common way of life, as we all know. So it is also the representation of your immediate environment and getting adapted to it. So therefore, successive generations, okay, like if I take 5 generations or 4 generations or 3 generations, you can see, and their long settlement history, or like, transplanted societies, you can see this, the language variation and change. Age and generation has an impact on language change and variation, and definitely the past defines the present. So here, age allows us to see the actual behavior of a language. Now, social class, social class is also very interesting indicators, to look into the use of language. It also helps us to understand the socio-economic differentiation within a speech community, how one behaves within a community, who speaks what to whom, like address terms, respect, work assigned. All these things, all these factors, are involved in the social class. So I'll give you an example, like for example, amar gharat maid ahe, you see these maids, when they have a different, when they're coming from the rural areas, to work in the urban areas, in some households, so they come here to amar yat ahe, here to language to change kori loy. আৰু সিহঁতে কথা ক'ব বিচাৰে যেনেকুৱা আৰ্বান লাইফত, আৰ্বান চিটিত যেনেকুৱা মানুহে কথা কয় তেনেকুৱা ক'ব বিচাৰে. So but on the other hand, those people who are hiring these maids, they might not give you this the same respect. They will give you the respect, but they will not, but in return, vice versa, it is not happening. Okay, so age has no relation to address terms or respect. So this is where a social class becomes very important in the use of language. I hope you all are understanding what I want to say. So the next thing is that gender. So in language studies, in a lot of language studies, you all know, gender plays a very important role. So আমি যতে থাকো তেতিয়া ভিতৰত আগাৰ স্পিচ কমিউনিটিৰ ভিতৰত আমি থাকো তেতিয়া মই দেখি পাওঁ যে ছোৱালী মানুহে কেনেকুৱা কথা কয়, ল'ৰা মানুহে কেনেকুৱা কথা কয়, সেইটো আমি দেখিব পাৰোঁ। বাহিৰৰ পৰা আমি দেখিব নোৱাৰো সেইটো। সো এইটো স্পিচ কমিউনিটিৰ ভিতৰত থাকিলে সেইটো আমি ডিফাৰেন্সটো গম পাওঁ যে ছোৱালী মানুহে কেনেকুৱা কথা কয় আৰু ল'ৰা মানুহে কেনেকুৱা কথা কয়, কিয় তেনেকুৱা কথা কয়। That is also dependent on all these factors I have mentioned. Okay, it is not one specific factor. There are so many factors which are assigned for this differences in gender. So men and women speak differently. This is not only in Assam, but it is a worldwide phenomena where men and women speak differently. So as I said, this variation and complexities cannot be understood outside the community. One has to be within a community to understand this differences, because this differences is so subtle, very subtle. So another aspect, another indicator is education and no education. Then you have occupation. So education and occupation go hand in hand. So education and occupation gives us an insight into the social structure and functioning of a society or a community. Lifestyle is another indicator. It's very integral in any kind of speech community. So community-based studies. Okay, so this lifestyle. So 2 points must be kept in mind. One is individual and society, and other one is individual within a society. So there are two aspects. Okay, so one is individual and society, and the other one is individual within a society. So one is one's own personal choice. Like, when I say individual and society, here I have my own personal likes and dislikes. Okay, but on the other hand, when I am an individual within a society, I have to follow the community norms and practices. I have to follow it. I cannot just go and speak the way I like. I have to follow the community norms and practices. So likewise, attitudes, why people do what they do. So this is also again a big thing, attitude, attitude towards the language. Now in Ohomot amar Boro ase, Boro language ase, Bengali language ase, Ohom ase, aru bibhinno enka language ase. To hetu mane amar attitude kenuka, Ohom language, Boro language kenuka dekhe, Boro language Ohomia kenuka dekhe, Bengali language Ohomia aru Boro language kenuka dekhe. So that attitude also determines, the use of language. So you cannot escape. Now this diagram, it's interrelated to each other. You cannot study a speech community leaving one of the indicators. You cannot. So when you want to understand a speech community and the function of a language in that speech community, you have to take these broad indicators, to understand it. So this is how, it is so complex. So here, in my next slides, I will give you 5 postulates, okay, where, what are the function or the objectives of a language. So let's see the postulate number 1. So this postulate 1, I hope you can see my slide. Are you able to see my slide? Can anyone just say?
Yes, ma'am. We are seeing the 6.
Yes, we are seeing it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so in postulate 1, I have postulated that information, then please mind the words, okay? Information, communication, media, technology, and internet, and other information providers should be treated with equal stature. Okay, so here what I basically want to say is that there is more to communication than technology. Okay, this is postulate number 1. Postulate number 2 is every individual can create or disseminate information or knowledge in the form of a message. So this is a right of every individual to create, okay, an individual. If he has a language, of course, any normal human being, he learns, he acquires a language by the age of 3 to 4 years, he acquires a language. So if he acquires a language normally, then he is able to create, and not only he is able to create, he can also disseminate the information or knowledge. And you can see the diagram here, how complex, this, this information, the passing of the information and knowledge is, how complex it is. Okay, so this is postulate number 2. And postulate number 3 is any information, okay, or knowledge or message, should be transparent and understandable to all. So this is this is one of the basic concern, that even if we have a language, amar usorat moi eta bhaha jano, duta bhaha jano, tinta jano, hetu kotha nohoy dangor kotha hoise je information to hoy, knowledge to hoy, or the message jitu moi belek manuk dibo bisaru, that should be transparent and it should be understandable to everyone. So there should, you have to avoid some kind of this dual meanings, okay, arbitrary meanings. Eta hobdor duta mane, hetu enuka korile nohobo, so that should be very concrete. Whatever we speak, it should be concrete. And let me just also tell you that, India, though we have multilingual linguality, India is suffering from this. Though we have so many languages in our disposal, moi sao amor students or, amio ketiaba hoy ki ami bhalke express koribo noaru, ekdom accurate or concrete express koribo noaru, kyo koribo noaru. So that we will learn it here, that where are the problems. Okay, so this lecture of mine, it's just giving you a kick to know that, where we are going wrong. Though we have so many languages at our disposal in a country like India, why can't we express, why we don't have good speakers, right? So postulate number 4 is every individual has the right to information and to communicate, which cannot be compromised. So this is a fact. Okay, so every individual, nobody can stop, somebody not to speak, not to write, or not to disseminate knowledge. Every individual has the right to information. Okay, so this is a human right. This is not a law of a country or any other, governing bodies. It is the human right that every individual has the right to information. Okay, not only information, but also to communicate, which cannot be compromised at all. Okay, but here, this is a postulate. So just keep in mind that, and I said previously that we have so many news channels, and then everybody uses this right to information and to communicate. But what is happening, right? Postulate number 5 is any kind of communication which involves information and facts is dynamic by itself. I hope you all know what is dynamic. Dynamic means it is layered. Okay, so it has got different meanings. One is at the superficial level, there is one meaning, and there is a deep meaning, and there are meanings within meanings, right? And facts is this information and facts are dynamic by itself. Why? Because it involves the knowledge and skills. It involves the knowledge and skills to evaluate, to analyze, and to assess. So if you have the creativity, if you have a language, okay, if you have a language, you have an idea, you have that creativity to give a concreteness to your thoughts or ideas. At the same time, you need to also have a skill, to evaluate, to analyze, and to assess this. Okay, so these are the 5 postulates, I request all of you to keep in mind as I move forward in this lecture. So Understanding the nature of language, again, I come here as learning as an experiential process. Okay, so this effective speaking cycle consists of 4 important stages that pave the way to meaningful learning. So what is it? The first is your experience. What is that experience? When we say experience, you know, experience is it's about, like, you know, the day you are born and till today. Okay, so you have gathered enough experiences, and every day, each moment, you're adding to your experience. Today you are sitting here and I am delivering. I am also adding to my experience. Okay, likewise, you are also adding it to your experience. Now, what to do with this experience? We have to reflect it. The reflection is very important. Just by having an experience, it's not enough. We have to reflect it. Now, after we reflect it, then we have to conceptualize it. You know, we have to give it a shape. You know, we have to conceptualize this in different situations and in different environments. We have to conceptualize our experience and our reflections. And all these things, you know, we have to test. So this is a kind of a cycle. So, you know, today I learned something, so it doesn't, and I have given an exam. So my experience, it doesn't end with an exam. It again takes another turn, and it again reflects me. Then I have to conceptualize all my exams, all my tests. Okay, I have to conceptualize, then I have to again put this into the experience. So this goes on and on and on, you know, till the last breath of a person, of an individual. Now, all these things are leveraged by only one thing, that is called language. So if you don't have language, you cannot express your experience. If you don't have a language, you cannot reflect on those experiences. If you don't have a language, you cannot conceptualize your experience and reflection. And if you don't have a language, you cannot test your experience, your reflection, and your conceptualizations. So this language helps in steering up our minds, you know, the desired ideas, context, and the right mode of delivery. Okay, so this advantage of such experiential learning process, you know, leads to the ability to immediately apply your experience at a given time. If you have this experiential, if your learning is this experiential process, then one of the advantages is that, you know, you have the ability to immediately apply your experience at a given time. So you have this word called, very much it is used, you know, the students are, you know, professional students are always said that apply your presence of mind. How do you apply your presence of mind? All these factors, you know, leads to this presence of mind. So immediately you can correlate with your experience, with your reflections, with your conceptualizations, you know, you can immediately relate, correlate, and then you can reply it. Then the second advantage is that you can access to real-time assimilation, you know, real-time assimilation of ideas, churning, and feedback. So no matter at what stage or at what point you have learned something, okay, so you can assimilate all those things, you know, all these ideas, all this knowledge, what you have experienced. Then you can put this in a churning machine, and also you can have the feedback yourself. So, or in an organization or in a group. Okay, so this is one of the advantages of learning and in an experiential process. The third one is you develop a sense of teamwork and a great communication skills. So if you have this, you know, then you develop a great teamwork. So any knowledge, you know, you cannot work it alone. You need a team, you know, your organization, your schools, your college, your office, you know, wherever you are working, you work as a team. Nobody can, in a family also, you cannot stay alone. You need to have your family members. You need to have your friends. Okay, so all this contribute to your experiential learning. And thus you become a very good communicator. Okay, so and finally, the last advantage of this experiential learning is that development of reflective practice, habit of effective communication. So you have this, you can always reflect back on what you have communicated. You can reflect it, and then you can again rework on it, and you can apply this cycle of effective speaking. And you can go on and on and on, and with time and with age, you can see you become a very good orator. You can speak better, you can explain better, you have a lot of ideas to express. When you go to a class, you don't have to look into examples, it just pours in. Okay, so this is what the benefits of this experiential learning. So a normal human being can learn and speak one or more language. So this is a fact, and this is a very common. Today we cannot find a monolingual person. All the people today, are bilingual or multilingual. So there was a time like 50 years back, okay, you could find somebody who is monolingual, but today it is very difficult to find a person who is monolingual. All are bilingual or multilingual to some extent. Okay, so the point is, the art of communication is a skill. So we should not take it for granted that I know 4 language, 5 language, but what am I doing with this language? So you must understand that this is the art of communication is a skill and ability that should be acquired by training. So what is this training? Training can be formal, training can be informal also. So we have learned, many of you, my fellow colleagues sitting here, you also have learned a lot of language, informally. You have learned it. Okay, so not all languages, like take for example your mother tongue itself. You have learned it without a formal training. You have learned, you have listened to that speech variety, and through this trial and error method, you have learned the language, okay, by the age of 3. Without any external help, without any formal training. I'm sorry, external help is there. Of course, your family members have contributed a lot, okay? But then, without reading a grammar book, without mugging up, list of vocabularies, you have learned a language. So there are also, in language studies, there are also case studies, is that even if you are normal and you don't have the required requisite environment where a language is spoken, you cannot learn a language. So there are case studies where a child was being dropped in a deep jungle, and this child grew up there 14 years of the life. The child could not acquire human language, so the child was brought back to the rehab, okay, and was given a lot of formal training about to acquire a minimum language of communication to communicate, but the child could not do it. So it was so I will not go to this in deep, but you can see this a lot of case studies where children at this critical age period, this is from 0 to 8 years, if they are not into that environment, they cannot learn a language. At the same time, we also have seen in urban cities or metro cities, a child who is born in a metro cities with so many languages at display, a child is learning 3 to 4 language indirectly. So this is also there. Okay, so what I want to say is that art of communication is a skill and ability that should be acquired by training, whether it is a formal training or it is an informal training. So here, very quickly, I go into the language teaching processes. So I have been, the title of my topic is Essential Values of a Teacher, Traditional versus Modern Approach. So I cannot miss this point, though you all know this point. So I very quickly go into this language teaching processes and the various approaches to language learning. The first one is grammar translation method. You all know it. So it is one of the oldest methods of teaching a language, proposed by CIIL Plotz. So this oldest teaching method was for second language acquisition. So the strategies were based on learning the strict rules of grammar of the target language. It was also to compare the syntax of the native language and the target language. It was also to extract the specific sentences or paragraphs to be translated back and forth. So this was an approach of the grammar translation method. So though advantages are less in this kind of grammar translation method, one can say that this method helps the teacher to clear the meaning of a word and sentence to the students, very easily by translating them into the mother tongue. Okay, so in a process, the students learn things very easily if taught in this method. But you have to remember that this grammar translation method, emphasizes only on the reading and writing of this. You have this LSRW skills. Okay, so this grammar translation method, it only emphasizes on the reading and writing and neglects this listening and speaking. So knowing a large number of grammatical rules, cannot ensure that the students can use them appropriately in a real communicative situation. It doesn't give a guarantee that they can use this way of grammar translation method in a real life world. So in real life world, I have shown you that diagram, so many indicators. How do they function in other indicators? Okay. So it also typically talks about about a teacher-centric classroom with no opportunity for speaking practice. For example, I give you Ohomia, Assamese as a language, in Assam in schools. So this Assamese is also taught in Barak Valley, Nalbari, Barpeta, Kokrajar. Okay, Hebur Jagat Hetu Ohomia Parayasa teachers are teaching this. On the other hand, you have this Nagaon, Jorat, and Dibrugarh. So you see the teachers teaching in these places where the students are there, and are speaking Assamese. But look at those geographical place, the states, the districts in Assam, where Assamese is a second language. So here, this grammar translation method, though it is very easy to teach, the strict grammatical rules and conventions, through this grammar translation method, but then the learners are not, they don't achieve this natural fluency. Natural speech fluency of Assamese cannot be achieved. Okay, and the most important, the lacking is that they cannot also they lack in this negotiation skills. Now, what is this negotiation skills? Negotiation skills is not like I go to a market and I buy something, or I buy a car, or I buy a home and I negotiate. No, every day, each human being, we are negotiating every day. Every single day we are negotiating. Negotiating means we are keeping our ideas to others, and we are get a feedback from others, whether they're agreeing to my thoughts or ideas or not, whether they are understanding my logical reasonings. So all this negotiation skills, has been failed by this grammar translation method, because the person needs lot of command of a language. Command of a language is necessary for the requisite negotiation. Okay, so this is where it fails here. So another method is this direct method. So this direct method of teaching, which is sometimes called as natural method and is often used in teaching foreign language, it refrains from using the learner's native language and uses only the target language. Now, if you want to learn a language, for example, if you go to Russia, it's a protocol that you learn the Russian language. If you go to China or Japan or certain Germany, it is being asked that you learn this language, the country's language. So what happens, they have this direct method of teaching that language where, the use of mother tongue is discouraged. So attention is only on the speaking and listening. So, well, this advantages are, direct, it's a direct way, and the learner can have an immediate association between the experience and expression. So that is very good in this method. So between the target word, okay, so the target word, the phrases or idioms, which are the requisite of a good communication, okay, its meaning, they experience it, through demonstration, dramatization, without the use of mother tongue. So the third method is this audiolingual method. Here, this audiolingual method started way back in this Second World War. During the Second World War time, the armies, where the American soldiers were taught different languages, through this audiolingual method. So from there, it became a popular way of, teaching a language. So what happens in this audiolingual method is lesson begins with a dialogue. Okay, the lesson begins with a dialogue which contains the structure of the vocabulary. The learning, learning is through mimicry of the dialogues. Okay, they are given a set dialogues, and they have to learn this by these repetitions or drills. Okay, to strengthen the pronunciations, and they they attain that amount of communication skills. So this also had led to a lot of disadvantages because they were not taught the whole of a language, but they were required to just have a minimum communication skills to communicate. So this audiolingual method stressed on the dependency on mimicry and memorization of certain set phrases. Then teaching of the structural patterns by means of repetitive drills. Okay, like some certain word formation or sentences or phrases are being taught to them by repetitive drills. There is no grammatical explanations are given. Then learning of the vocabulary in context is there. Then use of these tapes and audiovisual. If they want to know more about the language, they have to listen to this audio tapes and visual aids they have to take. Then the focus was on this pronunciation, and immediate reinforcement of correct responses was there in this audiolingual method. So just like the preceding methods, audiolingual method has its shortcomings, which is the inability to promote the communicative ability. Okay, so the communicative ability is not achieved. It's not achieved in this through this grammar translation method. It is not achieved through this direct method, nor it is achieved through this audiolingual method. Because attention is only paid to this memorization and drilling. On the other hand, this fourth one, this community language learning. In this community language learning, this method was proposed by Charles Curran and has been developed as a new education model. So what does it do? In this method, students or learners are seen as a group and not as a class. So these language learners, okay, are seen as a group and not as a class. So where, the students are considered as clients and the teacher is considered as an empathetic teacher. Okay, so this is helpful for adult language learners. So this kind of community language learners are very helpful in this adult language learning processes, where they do not feel the threat or anxiety to learn a particular language, a target language. So this interactive community learning process, the teacher is considered as an empathetic or a counselor. Okay, so here the teacher see the student as a whole person with feelings, intellects, interpersonal relationships, and protective reactions with the desire to learn. So this community-based language learning is considered to be the best way to learn the language. So the goals of this community language learning is that it not only emphasizes on the listening comprehension or reading comprehension or speaking ability or writing ability, it also emphasizes on understanding the culture or cultures in which the language is spoken. So the context and the environment is given, okay, to the language learners. So that is how they can associate the language with the culture, because they are learning in that environment. Not only they are learning in that environment, they are also understanding the perspective of different culture. Now, if there are other cultures present in that environment, they're also learning the perspectives of different cultures. Okay, so I have explained in previous slides, how language and culture are interrelated. So we cannot take culture out from the language, nor can there be any language without culture. So even though language by theory is considered, to be the medium of expression, some say that language is just a tool, but it is not just a tool. Okay, so without culture, language becomes very lifeless. Okay, so here I would like to mention here there are two types of teachers. Okay, one teacher is a traditional language teacher. So here I want to state that every form of expression in which the student is passive is traditional. So whenever you see a class which is where the students are passive and only the teacher talks, you'll find that this classroom is traditional. So what you have, the teacher, blackboard, books, chalk and duster are only tools of a teacher, and the contents are teacher centric, more of instructions, and the goals are memorization and recitation, nothing else. Okay, so this are very much prevalent today also in many schools in rural areas, even in some other vernacular medium schools and all. I can see, I visit the schools and I can see that this is the way, our generation teachers are teaching in this mode. Okay, so there is another teacher which is called the connected teacher. Now you look at this connected teacher. The connected teacher connects with everything, with the time and space. The teacher is there, present with and connects with the time and space, everything. So the curriculum, documents, the teacher is connected with the curriculum. Okay, then the teacher is connected with the colleagues. Teacher also is connected with the social network sites. Okay, where the student and the teacher participates through the social network sites. They have certain information gathering from the wikis. The print and digital resources are also being used. The connected teacher uses both the print resources as well as the digital resources. Also, the connected teacher takes the help from the podcast, the blogs and the broadcast. So this kind of teacher, when a teacher goes, this connected teacher goes to the class, even a dull class will become alive. because of this so many varieties of teaching a content. Okay, so where both the teacher and the student both are active participators in the class. In a lot of developed countries, you can see this is the mode. This is the mode of education system, where they give a topic, pre-hand they give a topic, and next day they discuss on this topic. So in India, we are supposed to come out with this kind of traditional teaching. Still in most of this professional education system, also we have this traditional teaching. And this is the reason you can see that so many, despite having so many institutions, India is one of the country where we have maximum number of institution, educational institution. No other countries in the globe has this, but still we have so much of dropouts. So this is where we have to think on the postulates I have postulated. All right. So coming with the next one is that, what is this youth? Who are this youth? Sorry, who are this youth? And the communication today. So it's a great myth of our times is that, technology is communication. So technology can do everything. You have this algorithms or artificial intelligence, and you feed it, with your data, and then this algorithms and AI will do all the work. No, it is not like that. Even if you create a communication system like this, it has to be manually feed it. The data has to be manually feed it. Then the programming does its run. That's a different story. But then if there is a slight error, the program does not run. So those who are technically savvy, they know how the softwares work, the programming softwares, they work. So technology and our world, which acts as a catalyst at the backdrop. So my discussion also revolves around the youth of today and the language use. Various studies have stated that the age between 12 to 22 years, are the valuable and productive youth. An age, this is an age for development of professional skills and exploration that covers many aspects of their life. Okay, like home, family, work, school, resources, and the role they play in the society. So this is an age, this 12 years to 22 years, this is an age of transition to work. Okay, then it is a transition to work, it is a transition to college, and it's a transition to independent living. So these days, it's very popular among the students to go to the boarding or go to the different place and do their further studies, higher studies. And many a times we can see that the students cannot tackle the pressure. What is the pressure? What is this pressure the students have? Is it monetary pressure? Is it the societal pressure? I will not disagree on this, but the biggest pressure is communication. They cannot communicate. I will give you an example, like in the entire northeastern states, English is spoken. Everybody, every student, fairly, they know English. But these students, when they come to bigger cities like Delhi or Bangalore, or they go abroad, they cannot have the basic communication skills. They fail to negotiate. They fail to communicate with the rest of the members in a larger society like Delhi. So there, with this pressure, sometimes they go back after the studies, they go back, which is very good, but then they go back, or they go without completing the studies. They 2-3 years staying in Delhi also, they cannot build up a network with the local people. They cannot build up a network. They live in a cocoon. They live with their community members who are also coming from Northeast. They live in that group. They go out with this group. They go out for party with this group. They don't want to mix with others. So whatever the social reasons they have, I feel that, they lack in this communication or the negotiation skills. Despite they know so many languages, they also know Hindi, they also know English. So there's a problem. So these age groups, builds capacity for abstract thought become established. So at this age, before this 12 years, they have this abstract thoughts. Everything is in abstract. It does not become concrete. But after this 12 years to 22 years, this is an age where these abstract thoughts become established, can think abstractly and hypothetically. Hypothetically means they can have reasons, can discern the underlying principles and apply them to new situations. They can also think about the future and considering many possibilities and logical outcomes of possible events. These are the youths, they can better value the diversity of the people, okay, and their perspectives, and also can appreciate that there may be many answers to a problem. So today youth, they have so many reasons. You look at your own home, you look at your own students, they are so spontaneous with their reasons, and you cannot deny some of their reasons. You cannot do it. They're very much logical. Okay, so if on one hand we have this traditional form of communication, okay, on the other hand we have this technology-enabled communication. So this what this technology-enabled communication does, it is an extension and convergence of this traditional form of communication. It's an extension of this traditional form of communication. So integration of computer technology and this traditional audiovisual media has created a dramatic impact on our communication. Definitely this technological tools, like telephone, blogs, podcast, video conferencing, social media, email, they have literally enhanced our ability to communicate. And thanks to the telecom revolution, it has enabled the new ways of sharing information and discovering new ideas. Availability of affordable and high quality content. Today, students sitting at their home, they can access to all the libraries across the globe. They don't have to run through pillar to post in search of a books. They can, it's readily available. They have this greater global connectivity, and of course the network relationship building. So it is the network is not limited to their own space, to their own immediate environment. It can crisscross the globe. It can crisscross the globe in making this network. You can see this. What does this Facebook, for example? You have LinkedIn, for example. These are all social sites. Where students do communicate. So this phenomenal advancement in technology has predominantly shifted from one to many to many to many. Okay, so a traditional form, what was it? It was one to many. But in this technology-enabled communication, it is many to many. Okay, for example, the social networking and viral marketing tools. You can see if you open a YouTube or if you open a Facebook these days, you can see there are a lot of advertising agencies who pops in your Facebook pages and in YouTube. You cannot streamline a YouTube, without any advertisement until and unless you are a premium member. Okay, so this is how you look at the connectivity, how it is, the business, the e-commerce. For example, It has taken a huge leap. Today, for selling pineapple, you can, I've heard this time, this pineapple, they don't have to come here, all the pineapples in Assam, they were exported out. So do you think in this pandemic, people have come here, the businessmen have come here, they bought it, packed it, and they have, they're left with their goodies? No. It's the e-commerce which is doing everything. So sitting in one corner, you can communicate with in a large number of people, and you can sell your goodies. No problem. So however, here we must be alert that this emerging communication technologies are altering the nature of communication process and our communication experiences. So definitely, the traditional form of communication, when I was a child, we had this close societal relationships we had. My neighbors, uncle and auntie were also considered as my relatives. But today with this technology, my own uncle and auntie also seems like strangers. So with every kind of new things, there is something which is a problem. But definitely we as a language facilitator, we have to combine all this together and take the best out of it. So the confusion and fusion of both traditional and technology-enabled communication have set its foot in all walks of our life, everywhere, right from the kitchen to the bedroom to the sitting room to our office to our market. Both this fusion are there. The traditional as well as the technology-enabled communication is there. And in this lockdown, it has also proved how this technology-enabled communication was a boon to us. Without it, how pathetic life would have been in this lockdown. So here, we have to know that what is the goal or objective of a teacher. So here we have to see that, we have to tell the students, that look here, if you want to learn a language, this is what you have to remember. So what I hear, I forget. Now, this is a fact that as we speak, it fades until I record it and keep it. Otherwise, as soon as I complete my sentence, it fades. But what I see, I remember. So you look at this nursery schools, kindergartens, the teacher emphasizes on the pictorial classes. So a lot of emphasis is there on the pictures and with the words. Words are not very much, emphasized, but the pictures are emphasized. But with this, when the child moves to, higher classes, one has to know what I do, I know. That means if I use it, if I apply my LSR skills, then I will be able to do it. And I will be able to know what I am doing it. So in this information age, the source is not collecting materials, but it is information and knowledge applied to work which creates value. So this is one of the self-assessment, we all have to do it. And this national education policy and this outcome-based education talks of the goal or objectives of a teacher. So it is not only that this assessment should be given to the students, but also the teacher also should take, a language teacher also should take this assessment. Like, a teacher also has to see that how many of you do write on an average. Now, apart from writing your class notes or instructions or lesson plans for your lectures or your classes, other than that, what is it that you write on an average daily? Then how much do you use the target language? Third, with whom you use the target language? Fourth, do you listen to audios of native speakers? Do you watch videos, movies to improve the target language? So these are the some of the assessments we have to do it every day, the teacher as well as the students. And you can see a remarkable change, after if you do this kind of self-assessment. Why? Because, I said that language are immensely complicated structures. So one soon realizes how complicated any language is when trying to learn it as a second language. So the number of languages that children at an early age learn apart from mother tongue, whether through natural exposure or educational interventions, has a deep consequences in their cognitive development. So as a language teacher, I always find my students, reporting how to improve vocabulary in English rather than asking them how to achieve the fluency or the correct dictions of a language it holds. Every time I ask my students, they say that, ma'am, it is the vocabulary. We lack in vocabulary, but it is not the fact. So the limited use of English has also left them in oblivion as how to use English in the most casual conversation. So in states like in North India, some of the students, they think that English is always formal. Okay, so English cannot be a casual form of conversation. So these are the mindsets of certain students. So we as a facilitator has to remove this their misunderstandings and these barriers. So in extreme case where they have to speak in English, students have the psychological tendency to translate it from their native tongue, wherein the essence of the thought is lost. So they go back to this translation method. If at all they have to talk to their teachers or the principals of the college, they move to this translation method, and where in this translation, the actual essence of that idea is lost. So this is a fact you all know, that language cannot be learned in isolation, and it has to be a continuous effort by the speaker to achieve this command and fluency. So this is where, the class should be participatory in nature. It should increase the interest and the curiosity, and there should be also peer group participations. So when we do this self-assessment, and we start with this kind of questions, we give these questions to the students, and you'll see that immediately a boring class is shifted to an active class. And there's a full participation of the students. You can try this in one of your language class. So here, every second of your life, you learn something which you may not get in books or in class notes. I personally have learned from my experiences, that observation skill is your greatest teacher and guide. So if you raise your observation power, you can learn from your surroundings, the people you meet, and the nature, of course. So however, it is the responsibility of a teacher to know the classroom. That means every class is different. Okay, so if I'm going to if there are two sections of class 1, say standard 1, there are 2 sections, and I am the teacher, language teacher, in both the section. So please see to it that what technique you have adopted to teach in section A will not work in section B. So you have to know your students, there's observation skills, where you have to know your students. And the background of their students is very important. The teacher, I have seen that many of the school teachers, they come from different place and to teach in a different school where they are not residing. So these teachers, they don't interact outside the school. But you must not forget that the students are coming from this locality. So if you don't know the environment of these students, you cannot, how do you improve the language teaching classes? They might bring different cultures. They might bring different cultures, different pronunciation, different dictions. We cannot label them. We cannot label them, because that is their language, that is which is present in their language. Many times teachers do these things, okay, which is actually not permissible. We have to appreciate these differences a child has, and we have to tell them that, look, this is your local language and this is this language. Okay, so you have to make them a difference between the target language and their mother tongue. So you have to put that differentiation on the blackboard and tell them this is this and this is this. Only then they will understand this, and they will not make a mistake in the next, when they understand this, they will not make any mistakes. So they will keep these two languages distinctly different. This is my experience. Okay, so most of the time language teachers do label that this is not the right way. Why can't you speak like this? Like, for example, certain sounds, they may not have in their verbal repertoire. They don't have it. But we as a language facilitator, we cannot label it. Okay, so with education and with this, we have learned, how to have, like, for example, if English is your target language, we know how to have the proper diction, the right pronunciation. But still, if you are a little unconscious, you can see in your own language, the English words which are borrowed in Assamese or in Bengali or in Boro language, you'll see the pronunciation is very different from what the actual English is. Okay, so with education, we have overcome this. With speaking, more of speaking of English, we have overcome this. But what about, teaching Assamese, in a place where Assamese is the, local language? How do the teacher, if the teacher is suppose a Bodo teacher, or a teacher is from, Nalbari, or a teacher is from Barak Valley? So we have to keep this in mind. So the utmost focus of a teacher is to build an interpersonal relationship in teaching learning process, and to provide the right kind of academic environment provided, powered by, this value-driven interaction and participatory approaches. Thus, your curriculum designers should not be too much technical or mechanical in the approach of designing a curriculum. So this Prospectus of National Curriculum Framework 2005, it is available in the website. So you can just type this National Curriculum Framework 2005 and you can get the whole PDF of it and you can read it. So what does it focus on? It focuses on learning without a burden. That means that learning should be a joyful experience, and it should move away from textbooks. Textbooks should be there, but also a teacher, a facilitator should also relate the immediate environment along with the textbooks. So that is to shift the learning from the Ratta method. A teacher, has to foster this creativity in classroom. And the second point is connecting knowledge to the environment, as I've said. So life outside the school, that is this National Curriculum Framework, focuses on the students to develop a sense of self-reliance and individual dignity. Now, when you connect your students with the environment, it assures them, this self-reliance and the individual dignity is enhanced. Okay, so many times small children, we don't consider their attitudes and all. We just ignore it. But this is not the way one should do. Not the elders of a society, not the teachers. Nobody. We don't have this right to undermine a small child's understanding about life. We have to also take this into consideration. So enriching curriculum beyond the classroom shall further make them understand the social relationship, shall imbibe them the social responsibility, and make them this global citizens. So today, we just cannot say that, okay, students of Assam will be only in Assam. No, we have to make them a global citizen. At the same time, we also have to give them the environment of their immediate environment, as well as the citizenship responsibility in the country they are born. So, and to integrate to this, we have to integrate this examination into classroom learning and make it more flexible. And this kind of flexible classroom learning and exam, it shall remove this kind of stress of exam from children. So we can hear a lot of suicidal attempts by the students after the exam or before the exam, or the peer group pressures. So all this can be avoided, if we take this kind of approaches in the classroom. So, the life of a student is heavily dependent on a teacher. So, if I talk about the pedagogy of 21st century, you see the learning management system. You will be a little bit amazed to see how this 21st century pedagogy works. I hope it is visible. Is it visible?
It's visible, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. So this kind of this 21st century pedagogy, you look at this network, and all these things are interrelated. I will leave this PPT with CIIL, and if you want, you can take this and you can check this, and you can see that how it is connected. So I don't have much time, and I go to this next one where I consider that curriculum designers seem to be too much technical or mechanical in their approach of designing the curriculum. So the outcome of every learning, is very important. So the tendency of overemphasis on the technical aspect, in the curriculum, has to be avoided, and further covering the fundamentals. Rather, we have to cover the fundamentals of the basic concepts of education while designing the syllabus or the lesson plans. So as a result, a kind of educational anarchy is going on in the realm of modern education. So a lot of changes are going on, and this pandemic has actually given us how to deal with this kind of education system, where we have a lot of problems. We have with the infrastructure, how to deal with it. So learners are going far from attaining the essential purpose of education. So they little think and care about what the goals and function of education and the educated citizens are. So they fail to fulfill what society expects from the educated society. So if you don't have this outcome-based education, then there will be always a problem. Some problems will be there. They pass in, you can see the CBSE, they pass in 80, 90, 95, 99%. But when they go to the actual field, they really cannot correlate, because from this MCQ pattern to when they have to write a subjective writing, they fail. I have seen this in my year after year, the students, who are coming with 98, 99%, they are very difficult. They face very difficult situation when there is a subjective education writing system. And technical courses, like professional courses like engineering and all, they have to be subjective. They have to create, they have to design, they have to analyze, they have to produce, they have to relate it, and they have to present it. So where is the boundary in making a distinction between traditional method of teaching from those which are not traditional? So where is the boundary? In other words, this traditional method are, you can see it is teacher focused, while modern methods are student centered. And this traditional method of teaching is teacher's directive way. It's a directive way, and the students' participation is less. But whereas in this modern approach, where it is student centered, the students the full participation of the students. And it not only it gives the student a active participant in the class, but it also develops the students critical thinking. It also develops this skill of problem solving and decision making. These skills are very important for 21st century students. It's very important because you know, they have to lead their life independently. They have to think, they have to make a decision. So language today is no longer confined to a certain locality or a certain home or certain environment. Okay, so language is of course a tool, but the communication is spread. I've showed you a lot of tables. So how this complexity of this communication is. And in this previous one, you can see this is what a 21st century pedagogy should aim at, so that the student is able to perform in all these pointers, Okay. So here I would like to conclude that traditional method of teaching may appear to be a teacher-centric, but they are not always so. So a teacher has to use a diverse method of teaching depending on the students. So a combination of tradition and modern methods work best, in my opinion. So today the assumption is that the learners are not empty slates. So we cannot think that the student who is coming to the class does not know anything. He knows everything. He's better well prepared than the teacher sometimes. So they know something which is related to the topic at hand, because everything is available in the internet. The whole prospectus and curriculum of a educational institute is there in the website. So a student knows everything before he enters a classroom. So here the duty of a teacher is to re-awake the latent knowledge of the student by facilitating a link between the known and the unknown. So of course, in whether you take the traditional approach or the modern approach, feedback is very important. And this feedback is not that, you know, you take the feedback and keep it with you. The feedback is that immediate, you know, you take the feedback and give the response. So that you know, if you are a little bit proactive in this feedback and giving them the response back, you know, that really triggers to remove a lot of barriers in language learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, madam. It was really a very impressive and illuminating lecture. You have discussed every detail, starting from different essential values of a teacher to various approaches and methods of second language teaching and learning. I hope the participants have been benefited from it. Now, with your kind permission, we open up the lecture for a very short discussion.
Yeah, sure.
The respected teacher participants can kindly raise a couple of queries related to the topic discussed.